we are tracking this evening. I'm Mitali Patel and you're watching Reporter's Diary. Let's get straight to Dalal Street, where markets saw a big pullback rally fueled by strong Asian cues today, thus snapping its three-day losing streak. Nifty rallied about 1.5% and the index ended just shy of 10,900. Sensex also reclaimed 36,000. The broader market slightly underperformed the benchmarks, with both the Bank Nifty and the Nifty Mid-Cap ending with gains of around 0.75%. From equities to the currency market now, where the Indian rupee continued to remain under pressure after opening 16 paise higher. It slid to close at 71.04 against the US dollar. A large amount of foreign outflows is seen as one of the key factors hurting the Indian currency. Let's talk about the big event now that the global markets are focused on. This evening, British lawmakers will deliver their verdict on UK Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal. And most lawmakers are likely to vote against the deal, potentially leading to a no-confidence vote against Theresa May. A defeat in Parliament today will open up several uncertainties, including the option of United Kingdom leaving the European Union without a deal or a second referendum on Brexit itself. CNBC's Steve Sedgwick, who's tracking the development from Westminster, filed this report.
So here at Westminster, the build-up to the key Brexit withdrawal vote continues. It's a huge day for the government, a huge day for the Prime Minister, Theresa May. But it does look like, according to many of the MPs I've been speaking to, that there will be a majority of MPs who vote against the withdrawal bill this time round, having had the chance to actually vote on it 5 weeks after they initially thought they would do. The Prime Minister, for her part, looks resigned to some form of defeat on this one as well. But what she does next perhaps depends on the scale of her defeat today. Will she have enough hope from the voting to go back to the European Union and try to renegotiate some form of deal and then come back and get a second vote on the withdrawal bill in the hope of passing it so that Brexit can take place on March 29th as scheduled to do so in the Article 50 process? Or will there be a whole series of events which could lead to the demise of Mrs May? Possibly she would resign if she gets a big enough defeat against her, but more likely scenarios that she will try carrying on to push her vision of Brexit forward, despite the fact that hard Brexiteers on her party and DUP that supports her party are set to vote against her this evening. What seems very likely, though, is that the opposition Labour Party will come up with their own vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister, in the government, if indeed she does lose this vote this evening. That, in turn, if she were to lose, it could potentially lead to a general election. Other scenarios include the fact that there could be a no-deal Brexit, where there is no scenario where MPs can agree on a deal with the European Union and actually the Brexit happens on March 29th with no deal in place with the EU. Or potentially another outside scenario could be the fact that in order to break the logjam, there is a second referendum on leaving Europe. Lots of scenarios all on the table as we get to this key vote here in Westminster. Steve Sedgwick in Westminster for CNBC.
Right now, European markets are trading mixed as investors brace for a showdown in Westminster over the UK government's Brexit plan. The DAX and the CAC are trading lower, while the FTSE is mildly in the green. But trade data for the month of December is in. Lata Venkatesh joins us with the details.
Okay, well, actually, this is an extremely positive number that we are getting on trade deficit, coming in at $13 billion. We have not done 13 billion since last April. We were running from previous April. We have been going from 14 and then we went on to 17, 18, peaking at $18 billion in July. And this very steep fall comes largely because of crude oil imports. I think crude oil imports, the number will just flash for you. Okay, these are other imports. There's not much of an improvement in anything else, but it is crude imports that are showing a distinct improvement or a distinct fall. Not a great deal of recovery in exports either. The big positive is quite clearly the fall in crude imports. That's accounted for almost a $5 billion fall from July levels. But for the moment, I think this is okay. Exports also done well, almost $28 billion compared to last month's $26 billion. So all told, a very good number, something that's definitely going to be rupee positive for tomorrow. We've seen a lot of weakness on the rupee because of some defense payments going through. But this should be extremely positive. 13 billion is almost a current account surplus situation. We should have no problems at all with a trade deficit of 13 billion.
Lata, many thanks for getting us the details of December's trade data. Let's move on and talk about Yes Bank. The shares rallied over 4% today, making it one of the top gainers on the charts. This rally was fueled by reports suggesting that Ravneet Gill, the current CEO of Deutsche Bank India, is the front runner for the top job at Yes Bank. Now remember, the bank has been searching for a new CEO after Rana Kapoor, who did not get the RBI nod for an extension. But as for Ravneet Gill, sources suggest that he might get a swift RBI nod, given that the due diligence was conducted only 6 months ago. Yes Bank is yet to respond to our query. And now let's talk about the big development from the aviation sector. A resolution plan to revive Jet Airways could be in place as early as tomorrow. We learned from sources that lenders to the ailing airline will meet tomorrow to chalk out a glide path. And as we've been reporting, as a part of the resolution plan, Jet Airways promoter Naresh Goyal is likely to step down from the board and may also give up majority control as lenders look to increase their stake. Sources also say that Etihad is also looking to infuse capital in the ailing airline. Remember, their current stake is 24%. Speaking of aviation, after a failed bid to sell its stake in Air India, the government is now focused on monetizing the Maharaja subsidiaries in a bid to shore up its revenues. Speaking to CNBC TV 18 on the sidelines of the Global Aviation Summit, Jayant Sinha, the Minister of State for Civil Aviation, said that the process of divesting stake in Air India subsidiaries were well and truly on track. That's not all. Sinha also clarified that airlines were appropriately hedged to manage the volatility in fuel prices.
We are proceeding forward. The group of ministers has made certain decisions with respect to the disinvestment of subsidiaries. That process is underway, and let us wait for the results to come in. Fuel prices have been volatile for decades now, and everybody that operates in the airline industry understands that they have to take appropriate hedging and risk mitigation measures when it comes to fuel prices. So the best airlines, the best carriers are appropriately hedged. They know exactly how to manage that volatility.
Let's move on and get you a CNBC TV 18 exclusive now. We learned from sources that DG of Anti-Profiteering Authority has found the case of undue profiteering of about 176 crores by Patanjali Ayurved. Patanjali on its part has refused the allegations. Timsi Jaipuria joins us now. Timsi, what are your sources telling you?
Well, sources have told CNBC TV 18 that Directorate General of Anti-Profiteering has found that Patanjali has profiteered to the tune of about 176.02 crores by not passing on the rate cut benefits that were announced in November 2017 by the GST Council, especially involving FMCG products such as shampoos, toothpaste, cosmetics, etc. GST Council had rationalized rates for about 200 odd items on November 11, 2017. And Patanjali is alleged to have profiteered by not passing on these benefits. However, when we spoke to Patanjali, they said that they have received a notice from the National Anti-Profiteering Authority on December 18, 2018. However, they find the details mentioned in that particular notice grossly erroneous, and notice also includes over 100 stock-keeping units which are either duplicate or exempted, and certain number of SKUs are those which were introduced post-November 15, 2018 itself. So they will now be submitting a detailed response to the National Anti-Profiteering Authority, which is the final hearing authority on the particular case, on January 28, 2019. And yes, only after a final order is being issued by the National Anti-Profiteering Authority, government can establish whether Patanjali has profiteered or not.
Patanjali is going to submit its reply. Timsi, many thanks for getting us that exclusive story. Meanwhile, Indian startups have been unhappy about the angel tax notices for some time now, and they've now taken their grievances to the Prime Minister. CNBC TV 18 learns that the startup industry body iSpirit is set to send a letter to the Prime Minister on key issues on behalf of almost 100 startups in the country. Mukta Warrior is here with the details of those demands. Mukta, what is the letter going to entail?
The angel tax issue that has been haunting startups for many years now is set to land up at the Prime Minister's office this week. About 100 startups are going to address a letter to the Prime Minister this week asking that the angel tax issue be addressed in the upcoming budget. Now, the main demand of these startups is that they be exempted from Section 56 and Section 68 of the Income Tax Act. Section 56 has been the main cause of concern for startups since it considers the capital raised above fair market value of shares as income from other sources and hence taxable. But Section 68 has also troubled startups and investors, mainly because it involves giving a satisfactory explanation to the assessing officer, especially about the source of income of the investors. Now, another issue for the startups is that the benefits announced in 2016 for startups be also considered retrospectively for the companies that were founded before that. Now, remember, several industry associations and startups have written to the government in recent weeks, including to the CBDT, to the Finance Ministry, as well as the DIPP. Now, the CBDT last month said it will not take any coercive measures, while last week Suresh Prabhu said that the government is working on a solution on angel tax.
You're watching Reporter's Diary. Now, over 97% of children in the 6 to 14 years age group belonging to rural India enrolled into schools in 2018, and this is according to government's annual status of education report. This is the first time that overall school enrollment in rural India reached such a staggering figure. That's not all. There's also been a decline in the proportion of girls out of school across all the age groups. This year, the government reached out to 596 districts in rural India and surveyed over 3.5 lakh households and over 5 lakh children in the 3 to 16 age group. Archana Shukla joins us with the key findings. Archana, over to you.
Well, yes, the success of right to education can be seen in the enrollments in school in rural India that have stayed above 95% since 2007. But USSR 2018 survey shows that out-of-school numbers is also declining and the gender gap is shrinking. So the proportion of girls out of school in the 11 to 14 years age bracket has seen a good decline, and even older girls in the age bracket of 15 to 16 are staying back in school longer. As for the enrollment in private schools, while there has been a substantial, that data will come up on your screens right now, there has been a substantial jump since 2006 till 2018, but between 2014 and 2018, last 4 years, have not seen an overall increase. But it, of course, varies from state to state. But are the children who are attending schools also acquiring the foundational skills in literacy and numeracy? USSR 2018 survey shows we are still a long way off. Still, about 73% of children cannot read at grade level, which means a standard 3 child cannot read a standard 2 textbook. There has been an improvement, but it has been very slow. States like Punjab, Haryana, Mizoram, Uttar Pradesh have shown a good improvement in grade level learning, but the deficit is still very large. If we talk of class 8 students, which is the last year of compulsory education, still 1 in 8 children cannot read basic skills. They don't have basic reading skills, and this number has not changed since 2016. Math is the biggest problem area. Levels in basic arithmetic problem solving have shown no improvements. Over 80% children in government schools and over 70% children overall in rural India cannot do basic math problem solving. They cannot do basic divisions. There is, however, wide variation across states, with states like Kerala, Haryana, Punjab, Gujarat seeing some improvement, but states like Himachal, Andhra, Uttarakhand, Bihar, Karnataka, they are actually showing a decline. In standard 8, more than half of all children who are in that level are still struggling with basic divisions. Survey also highlights a gender disparity when it comes to basic math capability, with boys performing better than girls in the 14 to 16-year age bracket. So, while there is an urgent need to shift focus from bringing children to school, that is something where we've seen an improvement, but now the focus has to move to quality of learning in rural India, because data suggests that many children who are completing standard 8 are still unprepared for higher studies or even to go into the labor market. Back to you.
Archana, thanks for taking us through the highlights of the latest ASAR survey. Now, TV18 broadcast reported a revenue growth of 22% and EBITDA growth of 41% on a year-on-year basis, while Network 18 reported revenue growth of 20% and an EBITDA growth of 18% in the same period. Lata caught up with Rahul Joshi, the managing director of TV18 and Network 18, and Sudhanshu Vats, the MD of Viacom 18, and began by asking them about the jump in operational performance.
I think if you look at this quarter, it has been a very healthy growth of 22% in our overall revenue. I think, there has been a healthy percentage jump in EBITDA as well. I think, on the back of robust advertising in the festive season, we've been able to grow our revenues in a good way. I think we've also been able to reduce our losses considerably, and that's led to a fairly positive EBITDA. I think if you look at the overall news picture, we are the #1 news broadcaster in the country with 11.4% share. That's almost a 2% lead over our nearest rival. So we've only widened our lead over the #2 player, and we are way ahead of others. So, we are established #1 news broadcaster in the country now for a very, very long time, and some of the advantages are now being seen there.
Okay. As you said, the reduction of losses in the regional news channels has helped a goodish bit. In fact, I think the losses have fallen from 29 crore to about 9 crore.
That is right.
Is there a chance of it getting into the black there?
Oh yes, absolutely. Next year we remain reasonably confident that it will be in the black. I think over the last 3-4 quarters, if you see, we've been reducing our losses 70% on the trot. And I think backed by an aggressive revenue growth of almost 30-odd%. Last quarter we grew 37%. This quarter we've grown 27%. And I think finally the losses are reducing, and I think that any revenue jump in going forward would fall to the bottom line. So I think we are very happy about our regional news performance. It's really turned around, and it's likely to hit the black very soon.
Well, I want to ask both of you about future revenues as well, especially because it's going to be not just one budget, but 2 budgets as well, election season. But I'll come to the outlook in just a bit. Sudhanshu, a more operational question. This unbundling rule by TRAI, you think that will allow us to keep the subscription at 13% growth? Will there be any problem?
So, Lata, the new tariff order which TRAI has come out with, in the long term is good. I think it's good for the industry, it's good for the consumer, it gives choice to the consumer and all that. But I think in the implementation phase, and I think this quarter particularly, and maybe it might take a couple quarters in my opinion, there will be some level of, that disturbances, I could say, or settling down or teething problems, and that could have some headwinds. Okay. I think both for subscription, and we could even see it if there is disturbances, and in the period in which it's getting implemented, we could see some headwinds on advertising as well. So I think the settling down period will have some headwinds.
It's some advantage that it is coming at a time when news will be sought, like for instance elections and budget, and of course mother of all elections. But Sudhanshu, I want to come more to the entertainment part. It's the entertainment business revenues have grown by 23%. How much of it came from Andhadhun? I mean, I like the movie.
No, Andhadhun was a blockbuster, Lata, and I'm glad that you saw it, and there are so many people who liked it. And I also wanted to let you know that IMDb rated it as the best film of 2018, but more importantly, it is the 10th best film ever. So which we are very, very delighted. It's done very good business. It was a small film, so profitability has been very high, but absolute profits not as compared to some of the bigger films. I think what has helped our revenue growth this quarter is, I think, one, the festive season and the ads, as Rahul was also talking about. We also had 2 of our tentpole properties. So Big Boss was there and Got Talent was there. And more importantly, films in general. And you spoke about Andhadhun, but we opened our account in Telugu as well with a film called Devdas, which did quite well. And so 3 or 4 films which we released in this quarter all did very well. So that gave us the robust 23% growth in revenue. Our EBITDA as well, despite all our investments, continued to grow. Our EBITDA on business as usual in this period has nearly doubled. So I think that's been a...
Yeah, I agree. Business as usual, EBITDA has done well. I think it was more because of the loss on Colors Tamil and the newly launched channels.
We've launched 3 channels, Lata. So Colors Tamil is an investment which is continuing, which was launched earlier. But we also introduced Colors Kannada Cinema, which is a movie channel in Kannada. And towards the end of the quarter, we introduced Colors Gujarati Cinema, which is our entry into Gujarat.
Those are investments. Okay, would that explain this? You know, if I looked at the consolidated numbers, the income growth, I'm not going YOY because it's not very comparable, but if you go quarter on quarter, the income is fairly good. It's gone from 120 crore to 146 crore. But expenses also have gone up almost similarly, and that's largely operational costs. So what would that be? Is it channels?
It's the new channels which we've launched. It's the investment in content which we are continuously making, and it's also the movies which we did in this period. So I think overall, broadly, it's investment in content which we are continuing to do.
Okay, Rahul, to come back to you on outlook. You know, we are counting on a fairly important set of events for the news guys. Do you think it'll generate revenue, subscription?
Yes, I think, you know, if you look at this quarter and the first quarter of next financial year, I think elections will really play a big role for the news business. And even though Sudhanshu talked about the softness that we are witnessing in January and probably also in the next 1 or 2 months, thanks to the new implementation of the new tariff order, I think this one event will help us in the last quarter of this financial and the first quarter of next. You know, government revenue is up across the board thanks to our regional channels doing very well, aided and abetted by, in some measure, the elections, the last 3 state elections and now the general elections. I think there will be ancillary activity around elections. You know, political parties will advertise. We will do some tentpole properties, events, IP. So all that would add to some amount of robustness in the revenue in this last quarter of this financial and in the first quarter of next.
Does it usually drive digital revenues?
It also does drive digital revenues. Maybe more in the case of broadcast, less in digital, but it does have a salutary impact on digital as well. And don't forget that, you know, while we will take a little bit of a hit in this quarter because of vote on account, not a full budget, but next year we will have 2 full budgets, not 1. So that is good news for the next year as well. So if economy, you know, and you would know better, if economy does well, markets behave, I think we would see some amount of buoyancy in advertising going forward.
You know, I just spoke to a conference of paint industry guys. In fact, even other industry, other than autos, almost everyone's speaking about fairly good demand. So,
that's right.
You know, hopefully it should translate. I mean, you can feel it in advertising, no?
I do think, you know, that this quarter has been, the last quarter has been good. This quarter also would have been decent, you know, again now because of this new tariff order.
Unbundling.
The first one, unbundling 1 or 2 months may be a little uncertain. But we do feel that the economy is robust and I don't see any reason why it should not do well in the next couple of quarters.
Okay. Fingers crossed, but I just have to ask you a last question. Anything else like Andhadhun on the anvil? What should we... So more as a viewer, I'm asking you.
Two things. One is on the digital piece. So our the Voot app continues to do really well. And I think there are 2-3 things I wanted to let you know about that. Our daily views now on Voot are crossing 25 million plus. So we are getting a substantial scale, particularly for an ad-led video on video platform. That's wonderful. By the way, all news channels are there on Voot as well. So I think you should sort of enjoy them. And lastly, on Voot, the good thing which has happened is that in our last 2 years, our reliance on our tent pole was very high, which was, let's say, a Big Boss. This year around, our reliance, we are getting a more holistic, views, which is very good. So therefore, regional is picking up, Mofsil India is watching, different things are being watched, and so on and so forth. So that's really good news. On Voot, we are launching we are in beta for a product on Voot Kids, which is something which all the parents who have young children should look forward to. It's a brilliant product.
I'm not so sure of that. But in any case, what about any movie? I mean, any blockbuster that you want to share or keep a secret?
No, we don't have any. So we have Thakre coming up, actually. Thakre is on.
So that will reflect in this quarter.
Yeah, that Thakre is on, which is basically Nawazuddin Siddiqui in and as
both
Thakre.
The Hindi and the Marathi.
Yes. This is the first time in recent history when Hindi and Marathi is launching at the same time.
Okay, I'm sure that would be elicit a lot of interest, and then of course whether it does well will depend on the movie itself. Okay, Rahul, Sudhanshu, thank you very much, and all the very best to all of us actually for this quarter.
And on that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Reporter's Diary. Many thanks.